My name is Rowan Vale, 33 years old. From the outside, my life looks like something pulled from a tech magazine cover story. I'm the vice president of TechVision Analytics, the one who created the DataStream Pro system that dragged the company into a new era and poured hundreds of millions into our revenue. People see the corner office, the speaking invitations, the stock options, and they decide I must be one of those lucky ones. Destined, blessed, a chosen success story. They don't see the pantry where my father's memory was shoved like clutter. If you want to understand how I ended up here, you have to start long before algorithms and boardrooms. You have to start when I was 6 years old and still believed love was permanent. My father, Michael, exists in my mind in bright, sharp frames. His laugh that filled the entire hallway. The way he'd scoop me up and throw me into the air just enough to make my stomach flip, then catch me with a grin like I was the most important thing in his world. The way he'd hoist me onto his shoulders, walk me down the hallway, and let me stretch out my fingers to touch the ceiling as if I were touching the sky itself. The way his voice softened when he read bedtime stories, tracing the words with his finger as if he was giving me a map to something secret. Then he got sick. Cancer. A word adults whispered like it might hear them if they said it too loud. I remember hospital corridors that smelled like antiseptic and overcooked vegetables, the way my mother's face grew tighter every week, and the day I walked into his room and realized he looked smaller than me, swallowed by the bed. He died, and the house didn't just go quiet, it changed shape. Mom remarried quickly. Too quickly. I didn't understand timelines back then, but even at 6, I knew the word already from the way my grandparents' voices cracked when they said it. His name was Stephen Carter. He was tall, with good suits, and empty eyes that slid over me like I was something to step around. Within a year, they had a daughter together, Madison. She was my half-sister on paper, but she might as well have been an only child from the way the entire world seemed to reorganize around her. Every photo, every schedule, every conversation began and ended with Madison. What Madison needed, what Madison liked, what would be best for Madison. I became the person who slipped in and out of frames, the one behind the camera, the one holding the diaper bag, the juice box, the coat. When I was 16, I had a room that felt like the last proof that my father had once been real. It was bright and sunny, with big windows that threw warm light across the floor in the mornings. His bookcase stood in the corner, filled with all his favorite books, faded paperbacks with bent spines, a few thick hardcovers with his name scribbled in the margins from college. Photos of him lined the walls, him holding me as a baby, him teaching me to ride a bike, him laughing with Grandpa and Grandma at the beach. Mom came in one morning without knocking. "Madison needs this room," she said, like that was the weather report. "You're moving to the guest room. She's 9 now. She needs more space. You'll be fine in the smaller room." I stared at her. This was Dad's room before it was mine. His things. "We'll put his things somewhere safe," she cut in, already mentally rearranging furniture. "Don't be dramatic, Rowan. It's just a room." It wasn't, and she knew it. I tried to argue. Told her I could help rearrange the house a different way, that Madison already had enough space. But Mom already had that look in her eye, the one that meant she'd made a decision, and any resistance would be labeled ungrateful or difficult. So that weekend, I packed up my life. They moved my father's bookcase into the pantry, squeezed between cleaning supplies and spare paper towels. Most of the photos came down. A few were boxed. Others just vanished. Later that night, when everyone was asleep, I crept downstairs and opened the pantry door. The light flickered overhead, casting shadows over stacked cans and detergent bottles. My father's bookcase looked wrong there, jammed up against a mop, like he'd been demoted to the utility closet. I ran my fingers along the spines, took the photos that meant the most to me, and hid them in a shoebox under my bed in the guest room that didn't feel like mine. Family holidays got stranger after that. We'd line up for Christmas card photos and birthday pictures, everyone arranged just so around the tree or cake. When I tried to step in, Mom would squint at me through the phone screen. "You look too sad," she'd say. "You'll ruin the photo." Or, "You look angry. We want happy family pictures." So I became the one who took the pictures instead. It was easier. Stephen never hit me. He never yelled. He never called me names. He didn't have to. He perfected a more efficient cruelty, complete indifference. He ate food I cooked and didn't comment, walked past me in the hallway without a nod, spoke around me, but never to me, sat at the head of the table and made eye contact with everyone but me. I got the message faster than any speech he could have given. You don't matter here. When I was 18, I got my acceptance letter from Stanford. I still remember the envelope, thick and heavy, my name printed in crisp black letters. I opened it in my room, hands shaking, heart pounding. Congratulations, it began. I ran downstairs, the letter clutched in my hand. For a second, I forgot who I lived with. I just wanted to share the news. But as I reached the bottom of the stairs, I heard voices in the kitchen. I'm not paying for her education, Stephen was saying. She's not my blood. That money needs to be saved for Madison. You're right, Mom replied. We'll tell her to go to the local community college instead. It's more practical. I stood in the hallway, the Stanford letter trembling between my fingers, feeling like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed. The next day, Mom sat me down at the dining table. Rowan, we've been thinking, she said with that faux sympathetic tone she reserved for delivering bad news she'd already accepted. Stanford is very expensive. Maybe you should consider community college here. It's much more practical. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just nodded, went upstairs, and closed my bedroom door. Then I called my grandparents. Grandpa Robert and Grandma Margaret had never treated my father like an inconvenience. Photos of him still sat on their mantel. They still used we when they talked about him, like he was part of their story, not just Mom's. Grandpa, I said, voice shaking, I got into Stanford. That's wonderful, he said immediately. Your father would be so proud. Mom says they can't afford it, I whispered. She wants me to go to community college. The silence that followed wasn't confusion. It was anger swallowing itself. Don't worry about the money, Grandpa said finally. Your grandmother and I will pay for it. All of it. And they did. They paid for every semester, every book, every fee. Their names went on the financial forms. Their support went into my bones. I left for Stanford with a suitcase full of clothes, a head full of algorithms, and a heart that knew exactly who my family was and wasn't. I graduated with a degree in computer science and data analysis. TechVision Analytics hired me right out of college. I worked like my life depended on it, because in a way, it did. I poured every sleepless night, every memory of being erased, into building something that no one could take from me. DataStream Pro started as code scribbled between coffee and exhaustion. It became a system that revolutionized how companies processed information. It found patterns in chaos, signals in noise, things everyone else missed. The system made TechVision hundreds of millions of dollars. Last year, when I was 32, they promoted me to vice president, one of the youngest in the company's history. My first big bonus hit my account with enough zeros to make my head spin. So I bought myself a villa by the lake. 3 bedrooms, big windows, a wide deck overlooking the water that caught the sunset on its surface like a mirror. When I first walked through it barefoot, listening to the quiet creak of the floorboards, I felt something I hadn't felt since my father was alive. It felt like mine. I decided to throw a small housewarming party. Just close friends, a few colleagues, maybe my grandparents, the people who'd stood by me when no one else did. On a whim, or maybe out of some fragile, leftover hope I should have known better than to feed, I called my mother. That's wonderful, dear, she said, voice high and sweet. When is it? In about a month, I said, but I'm so busy with work right now, I barely have time to organize anything. I can help you, Mom said quickly, too quickly. Give me the keys to the villa and send me $5,000. I'll take care of everything. Invitations, catering, decorations. You just focus on work. I went quiet. Mom had never offered to help me with anything that wasn't about Madison. My first instinct was suspicion. The second was something more dangerous, a flicker of wanting to believe her. Are you sure? I asked. Of course, she said. You're the successful one now. Let me do something for you for once. I was drowning in expansion meetings, global rollout plans, investor calls. I told myself it was okay to accept help. Okay, I said softly. That would be great. Thank you. I mailed her the keys. I transferred $5,000 into her account. Then I buried myself back in work. For a month, I lived like the villa was a dream I'd had. I stayed in my city apartment, stumbling home late, falling asleep with my laptop still open. I kept meaning to call Mom to ask how the planning was going, but every day bled into the next. There was always another deadline, another crisis, another reason to put it off. A few days before the party, I finally had a quiet evening. I sat on my couch with a glass of wine, let my shoulders drop, and opened Facebook for the first time in weeks. I scrolled past a dozen engagement photos, baby pictures, vacation shots. Then I saw it. A photo on my mother's page. My villa. covered in pink and blue ribbons. Balloons crowded around the back deck. A massive banner stretched across the wall. Welcome, baby Carter. My hand started shaking. The caption read, "So excited for the upcoming party. Can't wait to celebrate." I stared at the screen, at my house, at my money, at my mother's smile. I called her immediately. "Mom," I said, my voice too calm. "I just saw your Facebook post. Why does my house say, 'Welcome, baby Carter' on the wall?" "Oh, that," she said lightly. "Well, I made a small change to the plans. Madison is pregnant, you know, and she really needs a baby shower. She doesn't have much in life, so I turned your party into a baby shower for her." I couldn't breathe for a moment. "You what?" "Madison needs this more than you do, Rowan," she said, as if explaining something obvious to a child. "You just became vice president. You bought a villa. You're successful. Madison has nothing. She deserves to have a special day." "It's my house," I said slowly. "My party. I gave you $5,000 to organize my housewarming party." "And I did organize a party," she answered, sounding genuinely annoyed now. "It's just for Madison. The invitations have already been sent to everyone. Your grandparents are coming, all the family. Everything is set up. You can't change it now." "Mom, you need to redo everything, right now." "No," she said flatly. "It's too late. Everything is already planned." And she hung up. I sat there, phone still pressed to my ear, the call screen gone dark. I set the phone down slowly and looked again at the photo on her Facebook page. My house, wrapped in pastel colors for a child that wasn't mine. Using money that was. Memories flickered like an old film reel. The bedroom given away, the photos in the pantry, the Stanford letter crushed in my hand while they saved for their real child, the years of disappearing from every frame. I felt something shift inside me. My lips curved, not in a happy smile, a different kind of smile. I knew exactly what I was going to do. The day of the party arrived bright and idyllic, as if the universe were mocking me. Sunlight glimmered across the lake like scattered diamonds. A warm breeze drifted through the tall pines, and birds chirped like they had been hired to create ambiance. If you looked only at the weather, you'd think it was going to be the perfect day. But I knew better. As I drove up the winding road toward my villa, the first thing I noticed was the wall of cars. What was supposed to be a small housewarming gathering now looked like a full-scale wedding reception. SUVs, sedans, minivans, at least 50 people. I shifted into park, turned off the engine, and sat still for a moment. Then I got out. Laughter and music floated from the backyard. I followed the sound to the deck and stopped dead. My house had been swallowed by pink and blue. Ribbons hung from the roof beams. Twisted balloon columns framed the patio entrance. A massive banner covered half the back wall. "Welcome, baby Carter." My jaw tensed. Mom stood near the refreshments table wearing a white dress, as if she were hosting her own bridal shower. Stephen was by her side in a gray suit, looking proud of an event he hadn't lifted a finger to help create. And Madison, pregnant, glowing, and utterly comfortable, sat in a cushioned chair near a mountain of wrapped gifts. Her boyfriend Jason hovered nearby, rubbing her shoulders like she was royalty. I scanned the crowd. Only two faces mattered. My grandparents sat alone at a small table near the edge of the deck. Grandpa Robert stood the second he saw me, his face etched with guilt. "Rowan," he said quietly, pulling me into a tight hug. Grandma squeezed my hand, her voice trembling. "We didn't know. We thought it was your housewarming. We only realized when we arrived." "It's okay," I murmured. "Just stay here. This won't take long." I walked toward the center of the yard, past the streamers, past the pastel balloon arch. Someone had set up a microphone on a tall stand, probably for toasts about Madison's upcoming baby. Perfect. I stepped up to it. The metal was cool against my fingertips. A shrill feedback squeal cut the air, and every head in the yard turned toward me. I waited until the last conversation died, until the only sound was the soft rustle of ribbons in the breeze. "Hi, everyone," I began, my voice steady. "I'm Rowan Vale, and this," I swept my hand outward, "is my house." Mom's smile cracked. Stephen stiffened. Madison blinked in confusion. Jason's hand froze on her shoulder. "This party was originally planned as a housewarming celebration," I said evenly. "I gave my mother $5,000 and the keys to my home to help me plan it." I let that sink in. A few people exchanged glances. But my mother decided to do something else with it. She turned it into a baby shower for my half-sister Madison, without asking me, without telling me, using my money and my home. "Rowan, stop this right now," Stephen snapped, already moving toward me. Before he reached the steps, I held up a hand. "I'm not finished." But Stephen didn't care if I was finished. He charged toward the deck, fist clenched, And in one violent, breathtaking moment, he punched me in the face. The force rocked my head sideways. I stumbled, taste of copper sharp on my tongue, but I didn't fall. Gasps erupted across the yard. Someone screamed. Several men jumped forward, grabbing Stephen by the arms, pulling him back as he shouted incoherently. I straightened slowly, smoothed my hair with my free hand, lifted the microphone with the other. As I was saying, I continued, voice unshaken, I've been invisible in this family for 27 years. A ripple moved through the crowd. When I was 16, they took my bedroom, my father's room before that, and gave it to Madison. They put my father's belongings in the pantry, his bookcase, his photos, like trash. Stop it, Rowan, Mom hissed, face pale. When I got into Stanford, I continued, Stephen refused to pay for my education because I wasn't his blood, and my mother agreed. Gasps spread like wildfire. I turned toward my grandparents, who watched with misty eyes. My real family, Robert and Margaret Vale, paid for all 4 years at Stanford. Every semester, every book, every fee. Grandma covered her mouth. Grandpa blinked hard. So here's a toast, I said softly, lifting a glass of water someone had left by the mic, to the people who actually cared about me. Cheers didn't erupt, but something more powerful did, a collective shift. People who had known my family for years suddenly looked at them differently, questioningly. Stephen tore free from the men restraining him. You're cut off from this family, he roared. You won't get a penny of inheritance, not 1 cent. I laughed. It rang across the deck, clean, sharp, liberating. I never needed anything from you, Stephen, I said. I never will. Grandpa stood slowly, all 6 feet of him, steady and stern. 3 months ago, he said, voice booming across the now silent yard, Margaret and I changed our will. My chest tightened. Everything goes to Rowan, the house in Palo Alto, the investment portfolio, all our assets, only to her. Mom's face drained from white to gray. Dad, she croaked, what are you talking about? Grandma stood beside him. This is the result of your choices, Karen. You abandoned your eldest daughter. Now we've made ours. Madison lurched to her feet, pregnant belly catching the edge of the table. You ruined everything, she screamed at me. This was supposed to be my day. Jason reached for her shoulder. Madison, calm. Shut up, she shrieked, shoving his hand away. Just shut up. Stephen pointed at me, face purple with rage. You don't belong here. You were never part of this family. I smiled, for the first time genuinely. Actually, Stephen, I said, this is my house. I bought it. I paid for it. My name is on the deed. A stunned silence washed over the crowd. If anyone needs to leave, it's you. Stephen's jaw dropped. He opened his mouth, then closed it. He knew I was right. The baby shower is canceled, I said coolly. If anyone wants to stay and celebrate my housewarming, you're welcome. Everyone else can leave. Then I looked directly at Mom, Stephen, and Madison. You 3 are not welcome here. Leave, or I call the police. For a long, breathless moment, no one moved. Then Stephen jerked free, storming toward the side gate. Mom followed with her head bowed. Madison waddled behind them, mascara dripping down her cheeks, sobbing that I'd ruined everything. Jason hesitated, looking embarrassed, then trailed after her. A handful of their friends followed them, but everyone else stayed. Mom's cousins, Dad's old friends, neighbors who'd watched me grow up, and my grandparents, my real family. Someone turned on music. Someone else brought out food. The pink and blue decorations suddenly looked ridiculous, but no one cared. Laughter began to ripple across the yard again. Quiet at first, then stronger. As I stepped onto my own deck, surrounded by people who chose to stay, someone near the corner lifted their phone. Recording. Capturing all of it. The punch, the truth, the power shift. And I felt it. Not anger, not sadness. Just the faint hum of something beginning. Something big. Something irreversible. By Monday morning, the world already knew. I didn't post the video. I didn't share it. I didn't tell anyone what happened. But someone else did. A guest at the baby shower that wasn't recorded everything. The punch, the speech, the will revelation, the screamed meltdown from Madison. And overnight, it spread like wildfire. The first time I saw it was on Twitter. Insane baby shower drama must-watch found 4.2 million views. I pressed play. There I was, standing at my microphone. Stephen stepped into frame. His fist connected with my face. People screamed. I stumbled, then straightened, lifting the mic again, voice steady. The comments flooded in. She took that punch like a champ. Imagine punching your stepdaughter at her housewarming. Grandparents are real MVPs. That smile when she says, "This is my house." Iconic. Madison screaming, "It was my day," sent me. "Stephen is done. Pack it up, sir." By noon, the clip had 10 million views. By Wednesday, 20 million. By Friday, 43 million. And Stephen's employer noticed. He worked for a mid-sized investment firm, conservative, reputation-driven, terrified of bad press. The CEO didn't even wait 48 hours. Stephen was summoned, demoted, stripped of his team, and reassigned to a desk job pending further review. His pay was slashed. His authority evaporated. His humiliation was public. Mom tried to spin it online, claiming it was edited, misunderstood, that he just stumbled. But the video was clear. The comments were ruthless. The internet doesn't care about her version. Within 2 months, they couldn't afford their lifestyle. The big house? Sold. The 2 luxury cars? Gone. The country club membership? Canceled. Their spotless suburban image? Ruined. They packed everything they owned into a rented moving truck and relocated to a cramped 2-bedroom apartment across town. 3 adults, 1 baby, thin walls, secondhand furniture. I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel pity. I felt nothing. They were no longer part of my narrative. Meanwhile, my life accelerated. 6 months after the party, the CEO of TechVision Analytics, Richard Hayes, a man who'd been with the company longer than I'd been alive, called me into his office. He rarely did surprises. My pulse immediately jumped. "Rowan," he said, closing the door behind me, "I'm retiring at the end of the year." I blinked. "Congratulations, you've earned it." He smiled faintly. "I've been thinking about my successor for a long time." He paused. "I want it to be you." I stared at him. "Me?" I whispered. "But I'm only 33. "You built DataStream Pro," he said simply. "You drove our expansion. You understand this company better than anyone, and the board agrees." I sank into the chair across from him, breath caught somewhere between disbelief and awe. The youngest CEO in TechVision's history. 3 months later, it was official. My face appeared on Fortune magazine with the headline, "The Data Queen, How Rowan Vale Built a Tech Empire." Full-spread interviews followed. Requests to keynote conferences, features in industry journals, invitations from government agencies and Fortune 500 companies wanting DataStream Pro integrated into their systems. Our technology expanded across 15 countries, then 20, then nearly the entire global financial market. We signed partnerships with international banks, cybersecurity agencies, even research institutions. Money poured in, but it never felt like the point. What mattered was building something no one could bury in a pantry. With the promotion, I moved out of my small city apartment and into a penthouse overlooking the San Francisco Bay. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a private terrace, a home office that stayed quiet unless I wanted it otherwise. In that office, I placed my father's old desk. Retrieving it had been its own quiet victory. One day, nearly a year after the party, I drove past Mom and Stephen's old house. They weren't home. My old key still worked. They'd never bothered to take it from me. The garage was full of clutter. Boxes, mismatched chairs, forgotten knickknacks. And under all of it, pushed into a corner like an ugly secret, was my father's desk. Dusty, scratched, covered in storage junk. I stood there for a long moment, hand pressed against the worn wood, feeling anger flicker, then soften into something else. Resolve. I hired movers, took the desk, took his bookcase, took every photo of him I could find. Not as revenge, as reclamation. Now, his photos hang on my penthouse wall. Smiling faces, fishing trips, beach days. His bookcase holds court in the corner of my office, shelves full of worn spines and scribbled annotations. His presence is quiet, steady, grounding. Everything he was, everything he taught me, everything he believed I could become, finally had a place where it was honored. Every weekend I drove to the lake villa. I'd renovated it completely, tore down the pastel remnants, repainted the walls, replaced the furniture. It became my sanctuary. My grandparents came often. I gave them their own key. We'd sit on the terrace overlooking the water. Grandpa and I played chess. Best of 3, always. Grandma brewed her herbal tea. We watched the sun dip behind the trees. Those were the moments that healed me. No noise, no drama, just belonging. Meanwhile, Mom and Stephen's lives shrank. Their apartment was dingy and small. Madison gave birth to a baby boy, and Jason lasted a month before needing space. Madison moved back into the cramped apartment, her crying newborn a constant soundtrack to their unraveling. Whenever I heard updates through extended family, the same phrase echoed inside me. They became strangers. I became myself. I didn't block them because I hated them. I blocked them because I finally understood. Love requires effort. Respect requires effort. Family requires effort. They had never made any. My grandparents and my TechVision team, they were my real family now. They showed up. They supported me. They celebrated me without strings attached. In my office, I kept 2 photos. One was old. Me, Dad, Grandpa, and Grandma at the beach, sunburned and smiling. The other was new. My team and me celebrating the patent for DataStream Pro, champagne glasses raised. One was where I came from. The other was what I built. And both were mine. Grandma mentioned one afternoon that Mom still called every few weeks. She asks us to change the will back, she said, stirring her tea. Says Madison needs help. Says you don't need anything because you're rich enough now. What do you tell her? I asked. The truth, Grandma said firmly. No. Grandpa added, she made her choices. Now she lives with them. I looked out at the lake, calm, unbothered, unreachable, like I finally felt inside. The night it all came together, I was sitting on the terrace at the villa with my grandparents. The sky was velvet dark, the lake a shimmering mirror of moonlight. Grandpa had just beaten me in our second chess game, something he hadn't managed in months, and Grandma was pouring hot water over her mix of mint and chamomile leaves. I've been thinking about something, I said, watching steam coil from the teapot. Something I want to do. Grandma looked up immediately, giving me her full attention. Grandpa paused mid-rook movement. I want to start a scholarship fund, I said, for kids who lose a parent young, like I did. Kids whose families don't support their education. Kids who need someone to believe in them. Grandma's eyes filled in an instant. In your father's name? I nodded. The Michael Thompson Memorial Scholarship. Grandpa swallowed hard. He would love that, Rowan. And that was it. The moment the idea solidified into something real. The scholarship launched 3 months later. 10 full-ride scholarships every year. Tuition, books, housing, everything covered. The first year, we received over 2,000 applications. Stories that broke my heart. Stories that reminded me of myself. Stories where a kid wrote, I just need one chance, just one. I read every single application myself, and when I selected the 10 recipients, I called each one personally. Some cried, some screamed. One girl whispered, Is this a prank? Another said, My mom always told me good things happen to other people, not us. No, I told him gently. Good things happen to you too. The scholarship fund made national news. Interviewers asked me about it. Why support kids like this? Why now? Why education? I talked about my father, about losing him young, about how my grandparents had stepped in when my mother wouldn't. I didn't mention Karen, Stephen, or Madison by name. But anyone who knew my story knew exactly who I meant when I said, not everyone receives the support they deserve. Sometimes the people who should protect you don't. Sometimes family is chosen, not inherited. And then, one afternoon, a letter arrived at my office. The envelope was cream-colored. My name written in familiar handwriting. For a moment, my stomach twisted. Mom. I almost threw it away. But something inside me, the curious child who once begged for scraps of affection, wanted to read it. I opened it carefully. 3 handwritten pages slid out. Her apology was thorough. She said she was sorry, said she'd made terrible choices, said she regretted letting Stephen influence her and not protecting me the way a mother should. She said she thought about me every day, that she told everyone she met that her daughter was a CEO now, a millionaire, a powerhouse. She said she was proud of me, that she hoped someday I would forgive her, that she wanted a relationship again, that she wanted to be part of my life. I read the letter twice, and then a third time. No mention of the years she erased me. No mention of the punch she let Stephen land by letting him get that close. No mention of sending my father's things to the pantry. No mention of Stanford, or the room she took, or the photos she removed. No mention of screaming at me at the villa. No mention of the baby shower stunt. Just regret lined with admiration for my success. Pride in my accomplishments, not in me. I realized something in that moment. A truth that had been forming quietly for years. She wasn't apologizing because she loved me. She was apologizing because I became someone impressive. That wasn't love. That was opportunism. I stood up, walked to the shredder in the corner of my office, and fed the letter in 1 page at a time. The machine hummed softly, slicing her words into thin ribbons of nothing. When it finished, I brushed my hands off and went back to work. That weekend, at the villa, Grandma noticed the quiet in my voice and asked what was wrong. I told them about the letter. Grandma set down her teacup. Do you want to respond to her? No, I said. There's nothing left to say. She made her choices. I made mine. Grandpa nodded. You've built a good life, Rowan, a meaningful life, helping people, running a company, being happy. That's what matters. And it was. I had everything I used to dream of. A career where my talent wasn't questioned, a home that felt like peace, a lake villa full of memories and light, my father's desk, my grandparents' unwavering love, a scholarship fund helping kids like me, a team at TechVision who believed in me, followed me, trusted me. Meanwhile, Mom and Stephen were living in a cramped apartment, struggling. Their lifestyle gone, their pride bruised. Madison engaged again to a man who sells auto parts. Their world small and unremarkable, their influence gone. I didn't sabotage them. I didn't fight them. I didn't plot their downfall. I simply walked away, closed the door, chose myself, and built a life that didn't need them. That was the revenge. Not anger, not rage, not screaming or proving anything. Just thriving, just succeeding, just being happy without them. The kind of revenge that happens quietly, beautifully, and inevitably when you finally understand that the people who tried hardest to break you were never strong enough to begin with.